Again, we'd like everyone, I know we're still serving breakfast, but if you're going to be in the building, we want to ask everyone to kind of keep the side conversations down. We're going to be starting our U.S. Ag Committee Farm Bill listening session. If you want to visit, we ask that you step outside.
Where do you want them? Okay.
Well, I want to welcome everyone. Again, we ask that you kind of keep the side noise down in here so everyone can listen. If you want to visit, we ask that you go outside. Really a special event here at Farm Fest to host the U.S. House Ag Committee Farm Bill listening session. I believe in the years I've been doing Farm Fest forums, I believe this is the fourth time we've had such a session, and we certainly thank Chairman G.T. Thompson and his staff, as well as Congressman Finstad and Congresswoman Fishbach for helping organize this event, along with their staffs. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to the chairman of the U.S. House Ag Committee, Chairman G.T. Thompson, and he'll get us started.
Well, Ken, thank you so much. Thank you so much, and welcome everybody to this 2023 Farm Bill listening session. This is in the spirit of agriculture, which is really appreciating what God has given us. We're trying to use that in terms of two ears and one mouth, and that's why the focus today is on listening. It's from hearing from you. So as we get started, we please join me. Stand if you're able. Remove your hats and cover. And I'm going to invite to the stage Kylie Larson and Garrett Larson, two members of 4-H, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, and they're right behind me. Yep. Right behind you. Only one of us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Even Alabama. Thank you both. Thanks for being part of 4-H. Will do. Now I'd like to invite to the stage from the FFA, Brody Leidick, to lead us in a prayer.
Please bow your heads for this prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for getting us all here safely and for bringing us all together on this blessed day to listen about the Farm Bill. We give you thanks for those who cultivate the earth, for those who wake before dawn and labor in the fields, for those who take care of livestock, for those who plant and tend with care. We ask for your protection for our crops, livestock, and land. We pray for good rain that shall lead to a bountiful harvest. We ask for safety as we head into the harvest months. Thank you for the farmers, ranchers, truckers, and everyone in between who helps us put food on our plates. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you very much to Kylie, to Garrett, to Brody. And how about a big hand for all of our youth in the 4-H FFA program and the volunteers that make that so successful. Next, I'd like to thank and welcome our moderator, Kent Teesey. He has played an invaluable role in helping organize today's listening session. Once again, good morning, everybody. I'm Congressman G.T. Thompson. I have just an honor and a privilege to be able to work for American agriculture, for the American farmer. And thank you all for joining us today. I'm thrilled to be here for another great Farm Bill listening session. As I'm sure many of you know, the current Farm Bill is set to expire this year. Without a doubt, the most important part of the Farm Bill process is to hear from farmers, ranchers, foresters, producers, processors, the people of rural America, like all of you. So we know what's working, what's not, and where you need the most support. Now, there's a saying I learned BC, which either stand for before Congress or before children, that when it comes to public policy, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And so you all are at the table, and I'd like to thank my esteemed colleagues for joining me, all great agriculture advocates and champions. And we're ready to trade in our dress shoes for our work boots and get this done. Thank you to all my colleagues for joining me here today. A special thanks to Representative Fischbach for inviting us to her district. It's okay to clap for that. Go ahead. And to Representative Finstad and his team, both their teams, for their work and coordination. We're also honored to be joined by our esteemed whip, Tom Emmer. And a couple other just great agriculture advocates, friends from the Minnesota delegation, Miss Angie Craig from Minnesota 2, Mr. Pete Stauber, Minnesota 8. Then last but not least, my two friends from the Agriculture Committee who traveled from their respective home states of Iowa and Ohio to be here, Mr. Randy Finstad, Iowa 4. And an outstanding freshman member that I was just really honored to be able to help get on this committee. He's doing a great job. He waves into a lot of the subcommittees that he's not actually a part of. He's really demonstrated his passion, and that's Mr. Max Miller, Ohio 7. Now, we're here to listen, and due to time constraints, I'd like to ask our participants to keep their remarks to 2 minutes. I know that sounds limited, but trust me, I've done over 55 of these in the past 2.5 years, and if you really focus on what you want to tell us, you'll do a great job in those 2 minutes. Now, we do welcome unlimited written testimony, either today or going forward, and so we're looking to hear from as many people as possible. We'll be relying on our moderator, Kent Tesey, to keep us on time. Ken, thank you for all your working in organizing Farm Fest, and thank you for your help today. I'd like to assure you there will be plenty more opportunities to share your feedback with us, and I look forward to hearing from you all. Be sure to grab a comment card from our staff. If the staff are out there, please raise your hand. We got our staff. I mean, there we go. We got some staff around here. They're all hiding. They're all working hard. That said, if we're unable to, they may be at the beer tent, I don't know. That said, if we're unable to get you in the speaker queue today, I encourage you to please submit your Farm Bill feedback by emailing my staff. With that, I'm going to kick things over for some brief comments. First of all, to our whip, Congressman Tom Emmer.
All right. Thank you, GT. And, no offense to my great staff who's here. They gave me a whole bunch of wonderful things that I can recite to you, but I'm just going to put that to the side and say thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of Farm Fest. This, to me, is the greatest, being a city kid. This is where Machinery Hill moved to. Thank you for having the real Machinery Hill and the get-together here in Redwood Falls. Appreciate it a lot. For those of you that don't know, I'm in my 5th term in Congress, and I went to Congress understanding, which I think everybody that's up here with me from Minnesota understands, the two primary drivers of Minnesota's private economy are agriculture and manufacturing. And yes, I've got a different job that I'm doing in D.C., but I started on the Ag Committee. I was with GT when Mike Conway was the chair. Then under Colin Peterson's leadership, they moved me off the committee to financial services because I've always believed that it's about the farms and the banking. That's how we drive small business. That's how we drive our economy. Well, I've got a new job. I am the whip, as GT told you, and the whip's job is to make sure that when things are ready for the floor, that they can actually get across the floor. The Farm Bill is going to be a lift, there's no question, because there are many divisions in our country that exist. But the people you see up here, first, the Minnesotans, I cannot say enough good things about these people in their work in the ag space. starting with Pete Stauber and Angie Craig and Michelle Fishbach and Brad Finstad. I mean, we've got talent that you would not believe. And then GT not only comes here himself, but he brings two of the most talented members of our conference in Randy Feenstra and Max Miller. So this is the type of listening session that's going to make a huge difference for us when we get back, and we have to make sure that we get this bill across the finish line. So glad you're here today. Let's have a great discussion, and let's make sure we get something done. Remember, ag is not about Republicans and Democrats. It's about people, by the way, I think it was one of our former, Tom Peterson's here, I think it was one of your predecessors, Fredrickson might have said to me once, you know, there was a study done by Yale recently that showed that 10 out of 10 people still need to eat, okay? That's what the Ivy League is for, is helping us understand what we should already understand. Thank you for having me, and I turn it back to GT.
Tom, thank you so much. Now pleased to recognize our host we're here in her congressional district, Congresswoman Fishbach, for opening comments.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to all of you for coming to talk to us today and hear about what's happening, you know, and welcome to all of the members of Congress who have come to the 7th District, because I think it's so important. And I know that GT has really made a focus, while he's looking at this farm bill, is hearing from farmers, hearing from producers, hearing from the folks that really have a stake in the farm bill. And I think that's really important. It's been something that I've been very excited about, and the fact that he came out here to hear from all of us is a good thing. I know we are going to get a good farm bill. And I don't want to put too much pressure, but I have all the faith in Chairman Thompson that we will have a good farm bill, and it will make it better for farmers and the ag industry. But, you know, we've been talking a lot, been visiting with a lot of groups, and a lot of folks come to D.C. and in the district, and, you know, we're talking about the priorities for the Farm Bill, and I will just go out on a limb and say the one that I hear a lot is crop insurance, is making sure that that's still a strong program, and hearing about that. And I think we'll probably hear from some folks about that today. But there are a few priorities that we have, and I just want to say first and foremost, I'm not going to take as much time because we want to hear from you. We want to make sure that we have all the time we can to hear from the folks that came here to tell. And you have a great variety of members up here, and they're here to hear from you. And I think last night I made the joke, you've never had this many members of Congress that you can shout at once. So to have at it. But thank you all for being here, and I turn it back to GT.
Michelle, thank you very much. I recognize Representative Finstad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here. I am a fourth-generation farmer that actually farms about 40 miles from here, and I'm just proud to look in the crowd and see the third generation of my family here and the fifth generation of our farm family that is here. And I just have to tell you, we as farmers and as folks that care about agriculture in rural America are involved in the most honorable, noble profession that this country has. And I think we as a country are at a turning point where we have to get back on the offense and make sure we start telling that story a little bit louder and a little bit wider to more of our neighbors and folks that maybe don't quite understand what we do here in rural America. And the Farm Bill is an opportunity for that to happen. So as we have traveled as a committee across the country, as we have traveled across southern Minnesota, we keep hearing loud and clear that this Farm Bill needs to be written by the farmers and for farmers. By rural America and for rural America. It cannot be written by D.C. for D.C., by bureaucrats for bureaucrats. This has to be a program and a bill that works for each and every one of you. And so I just thank Congressman Thompson, Chairman Thompson, for being here and being willing to use what God gave him in the right proportions, 2 ears versus the 1 mouth, to have that listening session here. And as we write this Farm Bill, we have to keep the next generation in mind. And really that is something that weighs heavily on me. You know, you look at what our fathers and grandfathers and our forefathers did to give us the greatest country in the world. And we have to look at each other and look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what are we doing? What are we going to be leaving our kids? I look at some of the great state FFA officers sitting over here and the leadership that they have. I want everyone to look at them and keep them in mind as we write this next Farm Bill. What are we going to do to make sure they have awesome opportunities to raise the next generation in farm country? And that's really what the Farm Bill can be about. So look forward to hearing from all of you today, again, listening and our sleeves are rolled up and we're ready to get to work. So thank you.
Bradley, thank you so much. And for final opening comments, please recognize a good friend and a colleague also from Minnesota, Congresswoman Angie Craig.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's so great to see so many familiar faces. And GT, Chairman Thompson, thank you so much for coming to the great state of Minnesota to do this. You know, agriculture is not just a committee assignment to me. It's part of my own family story. I grew up in rural America, and my grandfather was a farm foreman who lost his job during the 1980s farm crisis. That's why I fought so hard over those years ago to get on the Ag Committee, and even though I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee now, it's why I fought so hard to stay there in this session as well. We all know that family farms make up the economic engine of Minnesota and of our country. We're looking forward to hearing from every single one of you today. There's a lot we need to accomplish. We don't have a lot of time to get it done here between now and the end of the year. I know many of you are under a USDA disaster declaration right now regarding the drought, and adverse weather events like this are a growing problem every year. And as we look at the Farm Bill this year, this is something that gives us an opportunity to promote smart, attainable solutions to the challenges that we face from this extreme weather. That's why I focused on expanding biofuels and improving our crop insurance program as a member of Congress. We've got to give you what you need to be able to be good stewards of the environment, to reach new markets all over the world, and it's truly an honor to be back at Farm Fest yet again to hear from all of you. So thank you.
Angie, thank you so much. And next I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator, Kent. Kent, take it away.
Well, thank you, Chairman Thompson, and all the other members that are here. We look forward to hearing some great comments. Just a little bit on the format here. I will read off who's at the mic, who's on deck, and who's in the hole. So that means our mics are located at both sides of the front tables here, so that means you can line up.
Chairman messed up already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll go back to Chairman Thompson.
Yeah, well, and this is not a guy I want to mess up, because tomorrow I'm going to spend some time with him when he's going to be doing axe throwing. So, to round out our Minnesota delegation, I apologize for that, Pete. I got ahead of my notes. We're from the state of Minnesota, Congressman Pete Stauber.
Well, thank you very much. As Kent was saying, thanks for inviting us here to Redwood Falls. I represent northeastern Minnesota, the northernmost county, Lake of the Woods County. There's farming and ranching up there as well, and I'm proud to be here. And especially proud of our chairman, GT Thompson, who's been around the country listening. He says this bill is going to be written by and for the farmers, and I think that's extremely important, especially for him to show up and our colleagues from Ohio and Iowa to show up. One of the most frustrating things I hear in Washington, D.C. is Minnesota or the Midwest is flyover country. If you want to fight for members of Congress out of Minnesota, you call our great states flyover country. We're the heart of this nation, and farming is the very first jobs in this nation, and it's stressful. My background as a police officer for 23 years, I'm focused on a lot of things in this farm bill. I'm excited to see what comes out of it. But crop insurance for sure, access to capital, and mental health asks when the farmer needs it. When a farmer needs that mental health, they're going through stressful situations, the door's got to be open for them when they show up. And I know that GT Thompson and Brad Finstad are on board with that. It's extremely important. And so for me here to see you all, and Brad mentioned the young members of FFA, there's young members in this community that are going to be the leading farmers, the next generation. I couldn't be more proud to be here with you and fight for that farm bill that's going to be written by you and for you, and it's going to make a difference. And I want to say thanks to all my colleagues from Minnesota that showed up, and of course to Max Miller and Randy from Iowa, to tell you all how important it is for us to get this right. We have to get it right for the next 5 years. And to the farmers and your families out there, thanks for the service and sacrifice that you give to our nation. Without you, this nation and Minnesota would be in a lot of trouble. So thank you very much, and I look forward to listening to your concerns and hearing your questions.
All right, Pete, thank you so much. I'm hoping that is the last mistake I make with the Farm Bill.
Anyway, Mr. Chairman, everybody's allowed one mistake early in the program. There we go. Back to our little ground rules. I will announce who's going to speak. I'll then announce who's on deck and who's in the hold, which would be the third one. There's a mic at each end of the table. You can come to each mic. And as many of you know, as many of the Minnesota delegation knows, when we have forums, when we have our election year forums that are timed, I hold up a little sign here that says 15 seconds. Everybody has 2 minutes to talk. And the second sign that comes up says stop. And the third thing that happens, either the chairman or myself will shut you off if you've gone over the time. So we trust everybody will kind of stay on time. So our first speaker this morning will be Dan Glessing, President of Minnesota Farm Bureau. On deck will be Gary Werdish, Minnesota Farmers Union, and then Richard Severson with Minnesota Corn. So Dan, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for being here. The one nice thing about the Ag Committee is it's not R's and D's. It's all people working to feed America and keep the food produced here in America. I guess my question or comment is in regards to CRP. Certainly a good program on those sensitive lands that need protection, but how do we, in the Farm Bill, make sure that is utilized on those sensitive acres and not taking good, productive farmland out of production, as well as the rates. Certainly the rates are becoming concerning to farmers. It's a competition for that land, and in particular young farmers. As I have young farmers that are children that I hope will come back to the farm one day and looking to expand. That's definitely a challenge when you're competing against the CRP rates. So keep that in mind as this Farm Bill goes forward, that it's a competition.
Dan,
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Our next up will be Gary Werdish, Minnesota Farmers Union. On deck will be Richard Severson, and John Zimmerman from National Turkey will be in the hold. So Gary Werdish.
Thank you, and thank you, Chairman Thompson, and the committee members and other members for being here. It's important to do that. And Chairman Thompson, you're off to a good start. You already admitted a mistake. That doesn't always happen very often. People don't want to do that, but you admitted making a mistake. Thank you for doing that, or not to make, but thank you for admitting it. But anyway, you're going to hear a lot of talk. Obviously at Farmers Union, we do support a lot of crop insurance. There's a lot of support for conservation. Dan mentioned it. The dairy program, a lot of programs, but what I really want to draw attention to is the competition, the concentration in agriculture. At Farmers Union, we started our Fairness for Farmers campaign a few years ago, really drawing attention to it. As in agriculture probably hits the hardest with competition, whether you're selling your livestock to the 4 packers or buying your equipment from a couple, like 3 major companies, seed, all the way down the line. You see it in the rural communities. The rural communities are struggling. They have a hard time competing. The small hardware store has a hard time competing with the Walmarts of the world. Right now, farmers, our share of the food dollar is about approximately 14%, and it used to be at as much as 50%. That, I think, is the root of really what's happening out here. We can't just keep raising more bushels of corn and selling it for less. That's not an economic model that works for family farmers. And we want to see a farm bill that supports all farmers, all types of farmers, and really like attention to a competition title in the farm bill. The farm bill is a safety net, is always known as a safety net for farmers, which it is, but it's also a safety net. And it should be a safety net for all types of farmers, but it's also a safety net for rural communities, and that's what really gets overlooked. the importance of the Farm Bill to rural communities through the Rural Development Division. And thank you all for being here this morning.
Gary, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Richard Severson will be up next. On deck, John Zimmerman, and in the hole will be Bob Worth. So Richard Severson, Minnesota Corn Growers President.
Chair Thompson, committee members, and all members of the committee who care so much about agriculture, thank you for holding this listening session on this nice warm day here in southwest Minnesota. My name is Richard Swede Severson, and I'm a proud family farmer. I farm with my wife and my son near Clontarf, Minnesota. I also have the privilege of serving as the president of the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. On behalf of thousands of farm families across our state, as you craft this 2023 Farm Bill, please first do no harm to crop insurance. It is the cornerstone of the farm safety net. Our state leads the nation in participation in this vital risk management tool. We want every farmer of every commodity in all regions of the country to participate in crop insurance the same way that we do in Minnesota. We believe this can be done by working to lower deductibles where they may be too high in some places, and by getting the risk management agency to aggressively use its R&D authorities and the private sector to use its 508H authorities to meet unmet needs of producers. We can do this. Finally, be aware of attacks on crop insurance that are mislabeled reform. Some key pillars of federal crop insurance are: number one, private sector delivery, which helps ensure that risk management is tailored to our farms and relief generally comes within 30 days of a loss. Two, the 1994 and 2000 crop insurance laws that enhance premium support for farm and ranch families to expand participation at higher levels of coverage. Number three, the inclusion of revenue protection so that we can better manage risk and market the products that we produce. And number four, trend yield and yield exclusion provisions to help ensure that farmers do not face an effective double deductible because their insurable yields don't match with what they prove they can produce. Attacks on these pillars will put us back where we were from 38 to 1980 with a crop insurance system that does not work. So when you hear a proposal that goes after these pillars, including proposals to take good risk out of the risk pool through things like pay limits and AGI means testing, these proposals are wolves in sheep's clothing. Thank you for being here and for taking the time to listen to all those of us involved in agriculture.
Thank you.
Richard, thank you very much.
Next up will be John Zimmerman. On deck, Bob Worth, and in the hole, Lori Stevermer. So next we'll hear from John Zimmerman with the National Turkey Federation.
Good morning, Chairman Thompson and members of the Ag Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to share the turkey industry's perspective today regarding the Farm Bill. My name is John Zimmerman, and I'm a second-generation turkey grower from Northfield, Minnesota. Also a member of the Minnesota Turkey Growers Association, as well as the vice chairman of the National Turkey Federation. Both organizations represent every segment of the turkey industry, from growers like me to processors, breeders, and the allied companies. The current HPAI outbreak is a prime example of how important the Farm Bill has been to our industry and animal agriculture community in a whole. Foreign animal diseases have the ability to cripple the entire agricultural sector and have long-lasting ramifications for the economic viability of the turkey industry. It is critical that the new Farm Bill continue to address these risks to animal health while bolstering the long-term ability of the turkey industry to remain competitive in the global marketplace. The 2018 Farm Bill established a three-tiered animal disease program with mandatory funding to ensure the sufficient development and timely deployment of all measures necessary to prevent, identify, and mitigate the potential catastrophic impacts of a foreign animal disease would have on our country's food security, export markets, and overall economic stability. The Minnesota Turkey Growers Association and the National Turkey Federation are asking for these programs to be renewed and remain robustly funded for the life of the next Farm Bill. The three tiers include the National Animal Disease Preparedness and Response Program, which allows APHIS to collaborate with farmers, ranchers, and animal health companies to deliver programs that help eliminate the most serious animal disease threats. The National Animal Disease Veterinary and Vaccine Countermeasures Bank, which helps fund the stockpiling of vaccines and diagnostic tests that may be needed to control or prevent disease outbreaks. And the National Animal Health Monitoring System Laboratory Network, NAHMS, which is comprised of more than 60 federal, state, and university veterinary diagnostic labs. The NAHMS network was critical in the efforts to detect and diagnose the HPAI cases rapidly. We're extremely grateful for the support of Congress has shown our industry through the challenging time of HPAI, and we look forward to continuing our work together in the upcoming Farm Bill. Thank you for joining us in Minnesota today, and thank you for your consideration regarding these important issues affecting my industry.
John, thank you so much.
Thank you. Up next will be Bob Worth, on deck Lori Stevermer, and in the hole will be Nate Holtgren. So next we have Bob Worth, who's president of Minnesota Soybean Growers.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson, and thank you, Representative Craig and Finstad, for working so hard on the Farm Bill on the House Ag Committee. And Michelle, Congressman Fishbach, sorry. Thank you for working hard for 7th District, because that's my district, so I appreciate that. So I guess what I really want to talk, and it's going to be repeated many times, is crop insurance. This is going to be my 3rd year of a drought. And if it wasn't for crop insurance, a lot of farmers like me probably would not be surviving. And I am really concerned about the younger generation farmers that do not have the working capital, do not have the net worth to survive this. And if we don't keep our young farmers back on the farm, or get them back on the farm, farming as we know it will be gone, because us old farmers are going to have to quit sometime. And so that's so important that we do have a great crop insurance. I think it can be improved. I know it can be improved so we can not have to worry about an ad hoc or anything like that. So this does not work as good as it should. So, and then for us in soybeans, we need a good trade program, because we need to export 6 out of every 10 rows out of the state of Minnesota. So it is important that we have a super trade program, increase our funding for our MAP and FMD. So this is stuff that really is important to all of us. The whole Farm Bill is really important, but these are 2 topics that are so important. So I want to thank you all for being here and listening to us. And, you know, we try to tell our story because we live it every day. Thank you very much.
Bob, thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Lori Stevermer, on deck Nate Holtgren, and in the hole is Brian Werner. So next we'll hear from Lori Stevermer, who's president-elect of the National Pork Producers Council.
Well, thank you, Chair Thompson, the rest of the members of Congress for being here today, and especially thank you to the Minnesota delegation for all the work that you do on behalf of Minnesota pig farmers. For those of you that may not be aware, Minnesota ranks #2 in pork production. Our 3,000 farmers marketed 16 million pigs last year. So in addition to the economic activity that provides, our farmers are part of the fabric of our rural economy, which is very important. For this farm bill, 4 things I'd like to address today: trade, animal health, labor, and Proposition 12. Despite the challenges we faced this last year with some red ink, trade has been a bright spot for us. We exported $7.7 billion worth of pork, which is 25% of our production, at $61 a head. All of that goes away and is shut down if we get a foreign animal disease like ASF. That's why disease prevention and preparedness is important, and funding in the Farm Bill for that 3-legged stool of our national lab network, disease preparedness, and the vaccine bank is very important, and continuing. If ASF comes, it doesn't just affect farmers, it affects corn, soybean, agribusiness, and consumers. So that's very important to us. Labor's a challenge. We know there's a labor shortage, and adjusting those H-2A visas so that those workers can stay year-round is important, because pork production happens year-round. Finally, Proposition 12 is a far-reaching piece of legislation from California. There should be no way that the people in California tell Minnesota pig farmers how to raise pigs. Our concern is the cost of Our concern is the cost of complacency, or the cost of, to comply, would cause small and medium farmers to have to leave the business and have more consolidation. The patchwork of regulations that could happen across 50 states would be hard for us. Appreciate your attention to this and all other matters. Thank you for being here.
Lori, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up will be Nate Holtgren. On deck will be Brian Werner and Bob Madsen in the hole. Next we have Nate Holtgren from Southern Minnesota Beet Sugar.
Good morning, everybody. Nate Holtgren, chairman of the board at Southern Minnesota Sugar. I'm also the president of the American Sugar Beet Growers Association. and a beet farmer just 40 miles north here in Michelle's district. So welcome and thanks for being here. And I just want to add to Congressman Emmer's comments about this farm bill being written farmers for farmers. But I think we'd all agree here, we're probably here with some of our kids, we're writing it for future farmers too. So keep that in mind. We're not asking these things selfishly for ourselves. It's probably for our kids as well. First off, I'd just like to thank members of the committee for fighting off some of the good work you've done to fight off anti-sugar amendments and appropriations bills. Keep that fight alive. We really appreciate out here in a top sugar beet state like Minnesota. And on behalf of the Southern Mint growers, my family, and the thousands of beet and cane growers nationwide, when you go back in September, please, we would ask you that if you have any amendments that are being considered at that time, that you would also soundly defeat those anti-sugar amendments. So we appreciate that. I'd also like to thank those of you that were out to Southern Mint for a tour on Monday afternoon. You got to see the factory firsthand, but you also probably saw the importance of a processing facility like that to a small town like Renville. This is kind of a one-trick pony for some of these small towns in America, and sugar mills are a big part of that. And so we ask that you understand what this means to our rural economy. So any attacks to the Farm Bill as far as a safety net, not keeping up with our cost of production, we'd appreciate if we can try and strengthen that safety net for these farmers and keep these rural communities alive. So when it comes to the Farm Bill this time around, I think Congress needs to recognize that a lot of these crops are strategic industries, not just commodities. You saw this during COVID, that we kept the country supplied with sugar. We didn't offshore that to another source in another country. And we have to recognize that in case there's ever problems with these things the next time around. So on behalf of the sugar farmers in Minnesota and nationwide, thank you for your help. And we ask that if there's anything we can do for you, if you have questions as the Farm Bill comes along, that please reach out to us and let us know how we can help. So thank you for being here today.
Dave, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up will be Brian Werner. On deck will be Bob Matson, and in the hole, Lucas Sjostrom. Next we have Brian Werner with Minnesota Biofuels Association.
Chairman Thompson, representatives of the Minnesota delegation, and members of the House Agriculture Committee. On behalf of our 8 ethanol production facilities in the state of Minnesota, we appreciate the opportunity to offer public input on the 2023 Farm Bill. In 2022, Minnesota's ethanol industry produced 1.34 billion gallons of ethanol, which according to University of Minnesota Extension, helped to generate $8 billion in economic activity through sales, including $1.9 billion in direct income for Minnesota residents. The industry supports nearly 26,000 jobs across the state. Since it was first included in the 2002 Farm Bill, the energy title has served as a critical complement to the renewable fuel standard by supporting USDA programs that promote the production of American-grown and American-produced bioenergy. We urge you to reauthorize this important title of the bill while maintaining its mandatory funding and discretionary budget authority. Additionally, Congress provided $500 million in grant funding to support the development of biofuel infrastructure through USDA's Higher Blends Infrastructure Incentive Program. Earlier this summer, USDA began implementing these funds, which included 17 projects totaling $8.6 million in Minnesota. These funds will increase the availability of lower cost, lower carbon E15, and we ask that you avoid rescinding or rolling them back in this Farm Bill. Lastly, we know that biofuels can do even more to increase energy security and reduce costs for consumers while providing environmental benefits. To fully capitalize on these USDA infrastructure investments and unlock additional demand, it's critical for Congress to once and for all pass the Consumer and Fuel Retailer Choice Act to permanently allow for the year-round nationwide sale of E15. Our sincere thanks to Representative Craig and Representatives Fischbach and Finstad for co-authoring this critical piece of legislation, and thank you for the opportunity to submit comments today.
Brian, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have Bob Matson, and then on deck, Lucas Sjostrom, and in the hole, Virginia Merritt. Next, we got Bob Matson from Compeer Financial.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Rural America is in a quiet crisis. Rural communities are receiving significantly less attention and funding than their urban counterparts, and that is really contributing to population decline, and as GT mentioned last night, export of our best assets, which are our young people. I lead our Rural Vitality Division at Compeer, which is focused on rural communities and making equity investments in businesses. I've seen firsthand the positive impact that significant capital investment in rural America can bring to rural communities, with the rural residents, attracting and retaining them, as well as the overall outlook a community has of itself. So for example, since the Farm Credit System has been given equity investment authorities, we've committed over $1 billion of capital, maintaining or creating thousands of jobs. And Compeer alone, we've been a part of financing rural community projects that have totaled over $1 billion, really focused on rural hospitals, senior care, and providing essential community benefits. And most of those have been in partnership with local banks and USDA. Strong agriculture depends on strong rural communities, and strong rural communities need agriculture. There's no doubt that rural development is a team sport, and no one private sector or public sector entity can do it by themselves to fix those problems. I'd specifically like to thank Congresswoman Fischbach and Congressman Finstad for their leadership in introducing the Investing in Rural America Act, which would give the Farm Credit System the ability to finance essential community facilities projects and to better partner with banks and USDA. On behalf of Compeer, I urge the Ag Committee to include language from this act into the 2023 Farm Bill. If put into law, the benefits to rural America are immense and could help change the landscape for the greater good. So if there's one question I'd like to leave with is, how important is it to have a focus on rural communities in this 2023 Farm Bill?
Bob, thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Lucas Sjostrom, and on deck is Virginia Merritt, and in the hole, Tom Haig. So next we have Lucas Sjostrom with Minnesota Milk.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. Appreciate you all being here. Lucas Sjostrom, Executive Director at Minnesota Milk from Bruton, Minnesota, on a dairy farm in the 7th District. Also here testifying on behalf of Edge Dairy Farmer Cooperative. We are the 3rd largest dairy cooperative in the country, with big presence in Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, stretching from Indiana to Kansas. Dairy, as I think you all have unfortunately heard, is in a place where fruits and vegetables were some time ago. Fresh fruits and vegetables should end up on the plates of Americans and those around the world. They have PACA, the Perishable Agricultural Commodities Act, to ensure that that happens. We don't want contract disputes stopping American produce from getting onto plates here or elsewhere. And we are in a challenging place right now on prices, but also in a place of distrust and ethical questions between dairy farmers and processors. Federal milk marketing orders help regulate this, but we need changes. We need flexibility to ensure our orders serve farmers, and we need fairness in contracting. Basic things we've taken for granted, like written contracts, verification of weights and measures, and getting paid twice per month, as we've all come to expect. We have a proposal that would help us do this, and we'd love to talk more with all of you about that. What types of conversations, would be my question, are you having outside of DMC, outside of DRP, outside of crop insurance, all great programs, to help secure markets and return the trust between dairy farmers and dairy processors? Thank you so much for your time.
Lucas, thank you.
Thank you. Up next will be Virginia Merritt. Then we have Tom Haig on deck and David Wagner in the hole. So next we have Virginia Merritt with Channel One Food Bank.
Good morning, Chairman Thompson and members of the House Agricultural Committee. My name is Virginia Merritt, and I'm the Executive Director of Channel One Regional Food Bank in Rochester, Minnesota. Channel One serves 14 counties in southeast Minnesota and western Wisconsin. Our flagship program is our food shelf in Rochester, which is the 2nd biggest in the state. We support 55 other food shelves, all of which are in USDA-considered rural communities. Our core purpose is to strengthen food access and cultivate healthy communities. As a food bank, we are the backbone in Minnesota's hunger relief network. As a food shelf, we have direct service to our neighbors in need. In June, at our food shelf in Rochester alone, we had 7,000 household visits. That broke our previous record of 6,200. Pre-pandemic, we were looking at 3,500. 2021, 5,000. It's a steep increase in need. Channel 1 is seeing a need like nothing we've ever experienced in our 40-year history. Like all of you, we're feeling the strain of our food budget with the high food prices we're experiencing. Across the board, Channel 1 is spending 50% more on food than last year to keep up with the drastic increase in need, driven by inflationary grocery prices and the end of pandemic area SNAP. The food we're buying is us desperately trying to fill a 1.6 million pound gap left by a 51% decline in food provided by the federal commodity programs. While we're seeing the amount of federal commodities increase slightly this year, more sustained investment is needed. This is why we hope to see funding for the Emergency Food Assistance Program, or TFAP, authorized at $500 million per year in the next Farm Bill. Additionally, we hope to see storage and distribution authorized at $200 million a year to better reflect the cost of connecting food with our neighbors in need. Thank you.
Virginia, thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next will be Tom Haig, on deck David Wagner, and in the hole Matt Woolman. So next we'll hear from Tom Haig, National Corn Growers Association President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being here today. Welcome to my home state. The rest of my colleagues here from Minnesota, and my close personal friend. I had a chance to testify twice in front of the House Ag Committees, the subcommittees. Corn growers from the day one, it was talking about crop insurance as our number one issue. And that we got to make sure that, it's fully taken care of. We know that the four pillars of the House and the Senate are going to go and be strong with it. We're worried more sometimes we get the amendments coming up and want to destroy things. So that's the other thing. And crop insurance is a public-private entity. It works, it's proven, it's like our president from Minnesota said, 96% of the corn farmers in Minnesota use it. So that is how valuable it is. One of the other things when I testified, how important it is that I was asked a question about is the government FSA offices, should they be handling the crop insurance or the public agencies? Well, when you use the public agency, you get a better relationship with that individual, because a lot of times it's also your crop insurance and your loan officer, so you can work things together that way. And one of the things is this year we're talking about crop insurance is that we all know that we have issues around our country. And a lot of the time I testify too is that if we had ad hoc programs, it would be a disaster because a lot of the young farmers would not be able to handle it. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you today. And like I say, Mr. Chairman, welcome to my state.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Next up will be David Wagner, on deck Matt Woolman, and in the hole Allison O'Toole. So next we have David Wagner with Minnesota Propane.
Good morning, Chairman Thompson and representatives. I'm Dave Wager with the Minnesota Propane Association, and I want to thank you all for being at Farm Fest this year. Minnesota Propane works with over 200 member companies to ensure customers receive propane when they need it, where they need it, and at an affordable price. Minnesota is the fourth largest propane state, consuming 484 million gallons annually. Of that, over 100 million gallons are used at nearly 30,000 Minnesota farms. Congresswoman Fischbach's district is the largest propane consuming district in Congress. Over the past 3 years, consumers have seen price volatility with price increases as high as 75% due to COVID, international conflicts, inflation, and supply chain constraints. Like every other commodity, numerous supply chain disruptions such as truck driver shortages, challenges with railroads, and other delays have plagued the propane industry. These disruptions ultimately result in higher prices for Minnesota farmers who rely on propane for their operations. I am concerned that a future wet or late harvest, as we saw in 2013, would further compound these supply constraints, resulting in a significant increase in propane prices, further depleting farm income, or worse, leaving numerous folks without fuel. In 2013-2014, a dramatic increase in agricultural propane consumption for harvest caused noticeable supply disruptions. That year, grain drying demand for propane exceeded 300 million gallons, which was triple the amount used in the previous year. Generally, propane storage at agricultural facilities is not significant, requiring some farmers to need multiple deliveries of propane during harvest, sometimes as often as daily. By removing financial and burdensome regulatory hurdles to propane storage, Congress can bring economic and supply chain certainty to the agricultural producers who rely on propane.
To achieve these goals, Congressman Finstad introduced a bipartisan grain dry act with Congressman Costa that would expand financing for propane storage to all farmers and ranchers by amending the Farm Storage Facility Loan Program. Additionally, Congressman Finstad and Congressman Costa introduced the Storage Act, which would alleviate duplicative and burdensome regulatory red tape that incentivizes storage over arbitrary amount. In closing, I would like to thank Congressman Finstad for working diligently on behalf of Minnesota farmers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up will be Matt Woolman, on deck Allison O'Toole, and in the hole Howard Olson. Next we have Matt Woolman with Land O'Lakes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you so much for coming here to southern Minnesota and joining us here. I'm Matt Woolman. I'm Vice President of Government Affairs at Land O'Lakes, also a fifth-generation family farmer here in Minnesota. And Land O'Lakes is a farmer-owned cooperative that's been in business here in Minnesota and across the country for the last 100 years. We started in the dairy business, but we also own Winfield United, which is our crop input business, Purina Animal Nutrition, and Truterra, our sustainability business. In all of that, we touch about 10,000 rural communities across the country and about half of the harvested acres across the country. So one of the things that we've been talking about is conservation and the need for bipartisan collaboration to encourage voluntary adoption of conservation practices at scale. And we encourage you to consider allowing ag retailers and farmer-owned cooperatives to help drive some of that conservation practice adoption and extend the conservation delivery system. And we've been supporting the TSP Access Act, as you know, Mr. Chairman, supported by, introduced by Congressman Baer, co-sponsored by Congresswoman Craig and Finstad and Finstad as well, so thank you for that. And also, you know, as we look at rural communities, the lifeblood of these areas across the country, really critical for food security and the tremendous needs around broadband infrastructure, housing, childcare, those types of things that create that operating environment for these communities. And lastly, I'd just like to say ag research investments are absolutely critical. When we look at competition across the world, we've got China and Brazil that are outpacing our investments significantly. Our U.S. ag research investment is at 1970s levels. We need to figure out a way to increase and bolster those ag research investments across the country to encourage competition and maintain these communities. So thank you very much, and appreciate you coming to southern Minnesota.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Next up will be Allison O'Toole. On deck is Howard Olson. And in the hole, Bill Aldinger. So next we have Allison O'Toole with Second Harvest Heartland.
Thank you so much, Ken, and good morning, Chairman Thompson. Welcome to Minnesota, and also members of the House Agriculture Committee. A special hello to the Minnesota members, of course. I am the proud CEO of Second Harvest Heartland, which is one of the largest food banks in the country. We serve 41 counties in central and southwestern Minnesota. We're driven by the singular purpose that no one in Minnesota goes hungry, which is why we're here to advocate for a strong bipartisan farm bill that enhances the nutrition programs our neighbors rely on. Food banks are the backbone of the state's emergency food system. In the heartland, where there's plenty of food to go around, food banks like ours tackle the complex logistics of sourcing and storing tens of millions of pounds of nutritious, in-demand foods and transporting them to more than 1,000 organizations across our service area. Second Harvest Heartland is also a leader in connecting people to the food assistance outside the charitable food network, in large part through our tireless team of outreach specialists who help enroll people in SNAP. We need a farm bill that strengthens and modernizes the SNAP component. Food bankers are some of the strongest SNAP advocates you'll find because we understand that we could never meet the need for food assistance through the charitable food system. Last year, we distributed 113 million meals across the heartland.
Yet for every meal distributed by a food bank, SNAP provides 9. Any effort to reduce SNAP access and participation is sure to increase visits to food shelves and meal programs that are already struggling to keep up with demand. This is particularly true in rural Minnesota, where we see some of the highest rates of SNAP participation in our state. I hope we can be united in a commitment to expand access to programs like SNAP to support rural economies and address food insecurity. Thank you so much for your time today.
Allison, thank you.
Just like to remind, when you come up to speak, please stand close to the mic. A couple of you lately has been a little hard to hear, so the mic doesn't bite, so get close there. Next up, we got Howard Olson, on deck Bill Aldinger, and Howard Tarko in the hold. So Howard Olson with Farm Credit.
Good morning. I'm Howard Olson. I'm with Ag Country Farm Credit Services out of Fargo, North Dakota. We work with and represent 25,000 farmer members across Minnesota, North Dakota, and Wisconsin. We have 2 items to recommend today. First, Congressman Craig and Congressman Finstad, we thank you and we support your crop insurance bill to expand the eligibility and the premium discount for beginning farm operations. This is very important as young farmers are trying to get started, important for their cash flow and input costs. We would also ask that Congress make the higher levels of crop insurance more affordable to farmers in northern Minnesota, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, other parts of the country. The 85% coverage level is used considerably in southern Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, and so on, but is too expensive in other parts of the country where farmers are purchasing at the 75% and lower levels. Increasing the premium support for the 80 and 85% coverage levels will allow farmers in the other parts of the country to insure at the higher levels that are available for those in the I-states. And getting more farmers to the higher coverage levels also reduce the need for the ad hoc disaster programs, and farmers have some skin in the game with that type of a program. Second, we would ask that you increase the limits of the FSA direct loan program, the FSA down payment loan program, and the FSA guaranteed loan programs. They were last updated in the 2018 Farm Bill, and the built-in inflation factor has not kept up with the input costs, inflation, and with the rising land values. We'd also ask that you modernize the program to improve the usage and availability for young and beginning farmers by changing the years of experience needed from 3 years to 1. We thank you for being here today, and we also thank you for the opportunity to provide this input. Howard, thank you very much.
Thank you, Howard. Bill Aldinger will be up next. Howard Tarko on deck, and in the hole is Lauren Bray. So next up, we have Bill Aldinger with Ducks Unlimited.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson and the rest of this wonderful panel for hosting the Farm Bill listening session in the great state of Minnesota. My name is Bill Aldinger. I'm a Ducks Unlimited volunteer. I live in St. Paul. I serve as the Public Policy Chair for Ducks Unlimited in Minnesota. DU is the largest waterfowl conservation organization in the world with over 1 million supporters. I represent approximately 50,000 members in Minnesota, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of DU today. We're proud of our long history partnering with farmers and ranchers to deliver conservation. And DU had the pleasure of hosting Senator Smith with the Wolf family by Starbucks out on their ranch a few weeks ago. It was truly a great experience for me to see the passion and the knowledge of these landowners, farmers, and ranchers and what they want to do for conservation. We want to extend the offer and provide you the opportunity to see firsthand how farmers and ranchers are great stewards of the land. In Minnesota, DU is adamant in using grazing as a conservation management tool. DU established a grazing program to provide technical support to farmers and ranchers, including rotational grazing, cover crop integration, water distribution, prescribed burning, grassland restoration, and other suited practices to improve water quality and soil health to restore diverse landscapes and promote profitability and create wildlife habitat. DU is committed to creating healthy, resilient working lands, ecosystems to balance human needs with the needs of waterfowl. The conservation programs included in the Farm Bill are a key part of the safety net used by farmers and ranchers to maximize on-farm efficiency and productivity and maintain soil health, water quality, and wildlife habitat in their lands. Conservation is in high demand across the country. We and our partners respectfully ask that you
and your colleagues strengthen the support for the most efficient and important voluntary conservation programs in the Farm Bill. We hope to see strong wetland, grassland protections continued in the 2023 Farm Bill. We support strong funding for important working lands programs like the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, Environmental Quality Incentive Program, and the Conservation Stewardship Program. A robust agriculture conservation easement program. This is a nationally popular program where demand far exceeds funding available. An improved conservation reserve program through expanded grazing opportunities that improve wildlife.
Thank you, sir.
DEO looks forward to working with you on the Farm Bill. Thank you.
Bill, thank you so much.
Up next, we have Howard Tarko, then Lauren Bray on deck, and in the hole, Jesse Zieg. Next, we have Howard Tarko, a Jewish response to hunger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Thanks for the opportunity to address the committee. I want to speak about nutrition in the Farm Bill. I'm on the board of Mazon, a Jewish response to hunger. We're one of many faith-based organizations that advocate for strong government programs to eliminate hunger among persons of all faiths and backgrounds. We urge you to support and strengthen SNAP, the critical anti-hunger provision in the Farm Bill that benefits millions of our citizens who are food insecure. Across all traditions, there's a fundamental value of taking care of the most vulnerable among us. Yet there is considerable hunger in this country, and the numbers tell the story. The USDA Economic Research Service estimated in 2021 that over 13 million households in the United States were insecure, meaning they did not have enough money or resources to be certain that they could buy sufficient food to meet their needs. Every congressional district in this country is home to many food insecure citizens. They rely on federal assistance to be able to put nutritious food on their tables. According to Hunger Solutions Minnesota, here in Redwood County, there were more than 2,500 household visits to local food shelves last year. In neighboring Renville County, there were more than 9,000 household visits last year. These are big visits, big numbers, and common to all of them are our neighbors need help. Bread for the World is a Christian, faith-based advocacy organization. Bread for the World estimates that federal nutrition programs provide roughly 10 times as much food assistance as private churches and charities combined. Federal programs are robust and needed. We urge Congress to help our most vulnerable citizens. Please, including children, please help them cope with hunger by strengthening SNAP and other federal nutrition assistance programs and eliminating ineffective barriers to access. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next up will be Lauren Bray, on deck Jesse Zieg, and in the hole is Peter Connor. So next up is Lauren Bray, Minnesota Turkey Research and Promotion Council.
Good morning, Chairman Thompson and members of the Agriculture Committee. My name is Butch Bry, and I currently serve as president of Minnesota Turkey and Research and Promotion Council. My family is actually the first generation in the turkey industry. We raise breeder birds just outside of New Ulm. In addition to the animal health provisions that John Zimmerman mentioned earlier, I would like to emphasize the importance of programming that supports poultry growers impacted by highly pathogenic avian influenza, also called HPAI, but were not actually infected with it. The Healthy Poultry Assistance Indemnification Act would expand the USDA APHIS compensation program to include all poultry growers and layer operations within the HPAI control area rather than those flocks infected, and simplify the calculation of indemnity. Adding this type of programming to the Farm Bill would help ensure that every farmer who is required to forgo poult placement to contain an outbreak is fairly compensated for their financial harm and ability to get back in production quickly. Finally, we also support the inclusion of the Safe American Food Export Act in the Farm Bill. This bill would encourage practical and preventive negotiations with our key export markets to reduce the economic impact of animal disease outbreaks. The SAFE Act addresses this gap by providing clear authority to APHIS, FSIS,
and the Foreign Agriculture Service to negotiate reauthorization of agreements for known animal disease threats preemptively. For those unaware, turkey exports are based on the county level. This type of programming is preemptive to protecting turkey exports during an HPA outbreak. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again, there's a lot of side comments going on. Just out of respect of the members of Congress here, as well as those that want to listen, if you want to visit, that's great, but please step outside the building so everyone can hear. Up next is Jesse Zieg. On deck is Peter Connor, and in the hole is Jason Collada, I think it is. Collada, it looks like. So Jesse Zieg, Minnesota Society of Professional Surveyors.
Good morning. I'd like to start out by saying thank you to Chairman Thompson for hosting this listening event, and Representative Finstad and other members of Congress for being here today. My name is Jesse Zieg. I'm a licensed land surveyor here in the state of Minnesota, current director on the state board for the Minnesota Society of Professional Surveyors, and a member of the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Also, I'm a farmer in Brown County, just to the southeast of here, on our family's sesquicentennial, so 150-year farm. So, what I'd like to talk to you today about is the Broadband Asset Surety Enhancement, so Base Mapping Act. When we talk about broadband, high-speed, always-on connection, it's critical to the modern economy, education, as well as agriculture, healthcare, public safety, government services, entertainment, and more. As a surveyor, it is our job to map and measure the land, and this Base Mapping Act would engage the surveyor to prepare and do this mapping. The Act would also authorize rural utility services, National Telecommunication and Informational Administration, and the Federal Communications Commission to consult, coordinate, and partner and utilize the USGS's 3D elevation program. The 3D elevation program is managed by the U.S. Geological Survey and partners with state, federal, local agency to acquire consistent LiDAR coverage over the nation. And LiDAR provides high resolution, a very accurate three-dimensional representation of the nation, of constructed and natural features. So the base map is not asking for any more funding, but just an update in policies and building on the 2018 bill. So Representative Finstad, as constituent and on behalf of the Minnesota Society of Professional Surveyors, we would please help you introduce that Base Mapping Act. And Thompson, as the National Society, would like to ask you to get it into the Farm Bill. Thank you. Jesse, thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Peter Connor. Then we have Jason Collada, and Bruce Moss is in the hole. So we got Peter Connor with the Forest Landowners Association.
Chairman Thompson, distinguished members of Congress, thank you for the opportunity to speak today at today's Farm Bill listening session. My name is Peter Connor. I'm a fifth-generation forest landowner from Leona, Wisconsin. Today I'm here on behalf of the Forest Landowners Association. The Forest Landowners Association represents our nation's family forest landowners spanning more than 45 states. Forest landowners, like many other agricultural businesses, are land-rich and cash-poor. This liquidity issue is worsened when natural disaster strikes. These disasters continue to increase in scale and impact across the country, including wildfires, high winds, and invasive species. However, forest landowners do not have the federal safety net, they do not have crop insurance, and they do not have a tax code that enables them to recover and reforest. Anecdotally, 430 acres of our timberland was obliterated by a tornado in 2019. 90% was completely wiped out right down to the topsoil. While we were able to salvage a small portion of the timber, we were paid a trifling fraction of the true value of 120 years of sustainable management. Our investment, patiently and conservatively tended for 120 years, was wiped out. The little compensation remunerated in this federally designated disaster zone was hard fought and received pushback all along the way. Needless to say, the process left us disheartened,
disappointed, and frustrated. There is a solution to this problem. H.R. 655, the Disaster Reforestation Act, DRA. That's H.R. 655. I thought I'd say it twice. This bicameral and bipartisan bill would help provide landowners with certainty to recover, reforest, and remain economic engines for our rural communities. The Disaster Reforestation Act will ensure forest landowners like me can continue to provide clean air, fresh water, and quality jobs for our nation. Please include this bill in the upcoming Farm Bill. Thank you, and God bless America.
Peter, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jason Collada with Midwest Food Products Association. And then on deck is Bruce Moss, and Adam Albrecht is in the hole. So Jason Collada.
Thank you. You got it right. There's a lot of Sicilians in the upper Midwest, right? So Chairman Thompson and members, thank you for coming to hold this session. I do work with the vegetable processing, canners and freezers, which Minnesota is one of the leading states in the nation for. Sweet corn, we actually produce, Minnesota leads the nation in sweet corn production, #2 in pea production. Actually, Congressman Finstad's district has long been the leading state, or leading district for production of sweet corn. So 3 issues I want to just touch on quick today. First of all is federal food programs. We have a number of programs that have gone from treating all forms of fruits and vegetables equally to preferring fresh only. And this has been a real challenge for our industry. We'd sure like to see equal treatment. These vegetables are nutritionally equivalent, and we do produce a lot of these canned vegetables in particular here in Minnesota. Second issue, Buy American. We've been hearing from our brethren out in the West Coast. We've had a number of issues with Chinese peaches being purchased by American-funded school programs, and we'd really like to make sure that American produce, so the exclusions that are allowed for foreign goods, we'd ask that the committee look into that and see about restricting how much is added. And then the third issue we have deals with tin plate steel. This has been an issue, got caught up in the broader tariffs that were imposed in 2018. We have really struggled. We've seen a doubling of foreign market share as we, for sweet corn and green beans in particular, and we just don't want to see that lost and want to just, I know it's a little outside the Farm Bill, but the important issue as the can is about 40% of the cost of what you see, the steel in the store. So thank you again for coming out. Jason, thank you.
Next up will be Bruce Moss. Then we have Adam Albrecht on deck, and in the hole, Brian Footer. Bruce Moss is the director with Associated Milk Producers, AMPI.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Thompson and representatives. We thank you for your support of the last Farm Bill, and especially I'm going to speak to some of the dairy issues. Dairy margin coverage has been a great facet of the existing Farm Bill. We'd like to see it continued in the next Farm Bill. As such, it does need a little tweaking in a few places. The production histories today are based on production from 11, 12, and 13, and dairy farms have changed a lot in the last 10 years, so it needs to be a more current production history. Another thing is, as our dairy farms have grown, the 5 million pound cap is not representative of the family farm. Probably a 6 to 8 million pound would be more germane. And the third thing about dairy margin coverage is the $9.50 coverage cap, margin cap. We all know $9.50 doesn't buy today what it bought 5 years ago, and will continue to erode with inflation in going forward. So if there's a way that could be raised, that would be really awesome. Another issue I'd like to see included in the upcoming Farm Bill again is the access to the dairy nutritious products. Specifically the Healthy Fluid Milk Incentive Project, which was new to the last Farm Bill. It's where the SNAP recipients can use the money that they buy milk with. They get a coupon to buy more milk. That's a great facet of it. We'd like to see it included to include both yogurt and cheese.
It reaches a segment of the population that really needs that. In closing, I'd like to thank you, Chairman Thompson, and all of you that have sponsored and supported the bill, the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act. Taking whole milk out of the school lunch program was ridiculous, and we appreciate your efforts in trying to get it back. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Up next is Adam Albrecht, and on deck, Brian Footer, and in the hole, Teresa Caveney. Adam Albrecht is Executive Director with Minnesota Bison Association.
Yes, well, Chairman Thompson, fellow members, thank you very much for being here. We truly appreciate it. I'm speaking today on behalf of both the Minnesota Bison Association and the National Bison Association. For the last 12 years, our industry has worked hard to partner with the University of Wyoming, with USDA's ARS system, and also other partners to create a vaccine for bison to fight malignant catarrhal fever. MCF is a sheep-borne illness that is carried through the air. Unfortunately, there is no way to detect the disease until it's too late. It causes a tremendous amount of suffering within the animal before it ultimately dies. As any farmer or rancher knows, you never want to see a loss of an animal, let alone great and tremendous suffering. So we are just asking you for inclusion of our project to get us over the hump into the research title of the Farm Bill. It would be much appreciated, and it would go a long way to preventing this from continuing to happen. Additionally, there is water buffalo being imported into the United States, and it's being labeled simply as buffalo. As you can tell from our industry, although it is bison, technical term, but consumers know it as buffalo. So it's being labeled as something. It's leading to a lot of confusion among consumers. So we're asking for your support for Carol Miller's bill, which is HR 3866. Carol is also a fellow bison rancher and Congresswoman of West Virginia. So this bill would make a very simple change. If it's water buffalo and it's coming into the United States, just call it water buffalo and we'll be good. So thank you very much for being here, and we truly appreciate it.
Adam, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Footer. Then we have Teresa Caveney on deck, and in the hole, Kate Mendenhall. So Brian Footer, who's Executive Director of Red River Retention Authority.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, U.S. committee members, for allowing me the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Brian Feuder. I am the Executive Director for the Red River Retention Authority out of the Red River Basin in North Dakota and Minnesota. We have currently been 17 major flood events in the Red River Basin since 1969, with the flood of 1997 being the most devastating. Currently, there are over 20 multi-purpose water storage projects in the Red River Basin of Minnesota and North Dakota in various phases of development. These projects primarily focus on water storage related to the flood mitigation. Currently, the cities along the Red River that have been largely protected, there's still major mitigation work that needs to be done in the Minnesota cities of Moorhead, Newfoundland, Purley, and Oslo. Regarding our city of Oslo, we want to thank you for providing the funding for that. Access is still a major issue during flooding. Protecting rural infrastructure and farmland from a 10 to 25-year flood events is needed to ensure that the Red River Basin remains economically viable and a leader in agricultural productivity. Ranking processes to account for rural and underserved areas need to be considered. If legislation is not able to be changed allowing for funding underserved rural areas, then the USDA NRCS chiefs, we ask that exemptions be made so that they can be considered. To enable better and timely watershed management planning, all USDA data should also be tracked on watershed boundaries in addition to county boundaries. We are asking also that the pilot watershed should be funded by the NRCS in both Minnesota and North Dakota, and to address the challenges that we have in capturing the economic agricultural issues there. We also want to take a look at what we can do to increase small watershed program recommendations through the PL 83-566 programs. Again, I'd like to thank you for your opportunity to speak to you this morning.
Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next will be Teresa Caveney, then we have Kate Mendenhall on deck, and then Laura Schreiber in the hole. So next we have Teresa Caveney with Climate Land Leaders.
Chair Thompson and members of Congress, thank you for being here today. I'm Teresa Caveney from New Ulm, Minnesota, a constituent of Congressman Finstad, and I am speaking on behalf of Climate Land Leaders. We're a group of Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin farmers and landowners, and we work to steward the land by using soil health and regenerative farming practices. Agriculture holds great potential as a climate solution in Minnesota and around the nation. We know that conservation and regenerative agriculture practices are powerful tools for building soil health, cleaning and protecting water, and increasing biodiversity while drawing down carbon. Minnesota farmers and landowners, like those we represent, are ready to lead the way with these tools through Title II conservation programs like CSP and EQIP. But the demand for EQIP and CSP far outstrips available funding. Nationally, less than 30% of farmers who apply for CSP are awarded contracts. And last year here in Minnesota, only 8% of the farmers who applied were awarded CSP contracts. Many of those applications that weren't accepted represent gains in soil and water health, local business contracts, supporting implementation, increases in farmers' bottom lines, and long-term farm resilience. So we urge you to consider increasing CSP and EQIP funding. And lastly, we urge your leadership in protecting the Inflation Reduction Act funding for climate-smart agriculture through working lands conservation programs so that we can continue to invest long-term in farmers and farm resilience. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you so much.
Next up will be Kate Mendenhall, Laura Schreiber on deck, and in the hole is Char Reese-Finney. Kate Mendenhall is Executive Director of the Organic Farmers Association.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Thompson and members of the House Agriculture Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Kate Mendenhall. I live just over an hour southwest of here in Okoboji, Iowa, where I own and operate a small diversified organic livestock farm. I also serve as the Executive Director of the Organic Farmers Association, a national advocacy organization founded by organic farmers to ensure that we have a strong voice in Washington, D.C. We're a grassroots organization representing the policy priorities of over 18,500 certified organic farmers across this country. Based on OFA farmer members' priorities for the Farm Bill, we are supporting a number of messaging bills that will help support the fastest growing sector of U.S. agriculture. Organic production offers myriad benefits for the soil, water, air, and provides ecosystem services that make a positive impact on reducing climate change. It's imperative that this Farm Bill support increasing adoption of organic practices for a cleaner future. In the upcoming Farm Bill, I ask that you support the Opportunities in Organic Act, H.R. 3650, which strengthens the existing organic certification cost share program to reduce the barriers to organic certification. This bill also supports organic transition and expansion, organic supply chain development, and technical assistance, with an emphasis on resources for producers and regions that have not received a fair share of public investment in agriculture. We also ask that you prioritize expanding organic research with support for the SOAR Act, H.R. 2720. Organic research helps all farmers and is especially needed as farmers face increasing challenges with extreme weather. Organic dairy farmers across the country are in crisis. We are working on a bill to support them and create a new safety net for organic dairy farmers. Finally, I ask that you provide a racial equity lens to our agriculture programs and access to land so that all farmers gain equal access to support and the opportunity to farm and grow food for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next will be Laura Schreiber. On deck is Char Reese-Finney, and in the hole, Stephen Krakava. So the next up is Laura Schreiber with the Land Stewardship Project. She's not here, so we will move on to our next speaker, who is Char Reese-Finney. Char Reese-Finney with the National Young Farmer Coalition.
Good morning. My name is Sharice Finney, and I work on a diversified vegetable farm in western Wisconsin. I'm not here to talk about the farm I work on, however, I'm here to speak about the farm enterprise I started. After gaining experience working for other people, I decided to start my farm. In March of this year, I began investing in the project by moving my bees and planting cover crop. Things were going well until I discovered a possible disease in one of my hives. As a farmer would do with a sick animal, I attempted to get it diagnosed so it could be treated. Part of this process included bringing another professional onto the property to make the diagnosis. The landowner, due to their lack of understanding and dislike of having extra people on the property, disallowed this from occurring. I promptly got booted from the property and lost the business I was creating before it even got off the ground. Stories like mine are not uncommon for farmers who cannot afford to purchase land. There is a solution, however. A bipartisan market bill, the Land Access, Security, and Opportunities Act, appropriates the resources we need as underserved farmers, ranchers, and forest owners to acquire land. Today, I'm asking you all to consider co-sponsoring the bill so that underserved farmers like me can pursue the farm business ventures that we aspire to. Thank you.
Sharice, thank you so much.
Thank you. Up next will be Stephen, is it Krikava? Krikava? Stephen Krikava. On deck is Kurt Beckstrom, and in the hole, Catherine Fleming. Stephen Krikava with Hunger Solutions, Minnesota.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the forum, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about the nutrition programs in the Farm Bill. I grew up on a farm in southern Minnesota. After attending the University of Minnesota, I spent my career in the Twin Cities working for a farmer-owned cooperative, and my brother and I still own the family farm near Glenville, Minnesota in the 1st District. During my career, I participated in consideration of 5 farm bills, and when I retired in 2013, I decided to get more deeply involved in anti-hunger advocacy, and since then I've participated in 2 more farm bill debates. The co-op I worked for, like most food companies, was and continues to be very generous with food donations for hunger relief. And I was always very proud of that fact. But it wasn't until I retired that I learned that, in fact, only about 10% of food assistance that's provided to hungry Americans comes from the charitable sector. And that's been emphasized this morning by the representatives from the food banks that are here. The rest of the assistance that's provided to hungry Americans comes from government programs: school lunch and breakfast, the WIC program, and SNAP program, which is still commonly referred to as food stamps. Food assistance has been part of the Farm Bill since the 1960s. That's when Senators Bob Dole and George McGovern worked together in a bipartisan basis to address the problem of food insecurity among Americans. They were the agricultural leaders who decided to make food stamps a part of the Farm Bill. At a time when the rural and farm population was declining, they could foresee the need to win metropolitan votes to assure passage of the basic farm programs. By including food and nutrition programs in every Farm Bill since has won passage because it meets the needs. The most difficult Farm Bill that I was involved with was the last one, the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018. One of the reasons why it had problems getting passed was because it threatened the long-standing link between agricultural needs and hunger relief. There was a provision that would have cut thousands of Americans from the SNAP rolls. That prevented it from winning passage in the House. It wasn't until the conference committee eliminated that passage that, in fact, the bill won the House vote by
369
to 47. Thank you very much.
Stephen, thank you.
Next up, we have Kurt Beckstrom with Minnesota Association of Soil and Water Conservation. On deck is Catherine Fleming, and then we have Banya Beacom. So, Kurt Beckstrom.
Thank you, Kent. Good to see you, by the way. My name is Kurt Beckstrom. I have the humbling opportunity to represent Minnesota on the national stage in conservation at the National Association of Conservation Districts. I'm a 3rd-generation farmer from northeast Minnesota, probably the only one, well, wait a minute, how far is that? Anyway, so I'm here today to represent conservation title. Farmers are interested in conservation.
There's a lot of interest out there, and we need to support that and streamline our programs. Right now, I think Teresa talked about that too, that only 1 out of 4 very good conservation projects get funded, and we need to change that. It would be really good if we could put the IRA funding in the Farm Bill so that we can sustain that over a long period of time. Conservation is important. It competes with a lot of other things, $7 corn, things like that are out there that are in competition with conservation. That means the rates for CRP and stuff like that need to compete. Do they? Well, otherwise we're going to see a lot of CRP back into row crop. Geez, there's a lot of things that I could say about conservation. Soil health is important. I think we need to react to climate smart practices and promote them, because that's the alternative to idling land, is climate smart practices with cover crops and other projects that are out there to support climate smart ag and conservation of our natural resources. And I tell you, just to say to the crowd, this is pretty doggone good that we have all these people here represented the agriculture in Minnesota. So thank you very much for your time, your attention, and welcome to Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt. Next up will be Catherine Fleming. Then we have Benya Beacom on deck and Matt Levitt in the hole. So Catherine Fleming with Project Sweetie Pie. Is she here? Not seeing her, so we'll move on. Next up is Benya Beacom, American Connection Co-ops. Okay, we got a substitute coming in. You want to state your name when you get up there? And
good morning, members of the Ag Committee. My name is Patrick Gary. I serve this county as the broadband coordinator through the American Connection Corps. The American Connection Corps is the nation's largest national service program dedicated to advancing economic prosperity and vitality in rural America through promoting broadband deployment and adoption. We embarked on this journey back in 2021 through a partnership forged between Land O'Lakes and Lead for Minnesota. We are joined by over 140 national corporate partners as they believe that broadband investment is a priority for securing the future of rural America. Our work was born from a direct need. Rural communities were being left behind due to the lack of broadband investment. During the pandemic, a gaping disparity in our rural communities was revealed, which we refer to as the digital divide. Leveraging what we learned from the pandemic and looking to the future of agriculture, we consider our ag producers who run precision planters, monitor fertilizer application, extract yield maps, and test soils. They need a modernized and more powerful road. The road I'm referring to is not one built from gravel, asphalt, or concrete, but a road made from reliable, high-speed internet. They need a road that provides a vast foundation for the future of agriculture and for the future of rural communities. I like to share one example in our own home where we sit today, Redwood County. In 2021, Redwood County ranked 86 out of 87 counties in the state for broadband connectivity. In Redwood County, we knew we had to act. Today, Redwood County is on the path in the next 4 years to have 85% of the county served with fiber in our homes and our businesses. Typically, in the internet industry, we refer to large metropolitan cities as gig cities. This is a phrase that we use for Redwood County. We call it a gig county. Stories like this are very common in communities that have ACC fellows. These fellows bring drive.
Thank you. You need to wrap up.
Great. As an alumni of the American Connection Corps, I want to advocate that the Farm Bill sees the American Connection Corps as a critical capacity building tool to ensure that we bring federal investments and funds back home. Thank you. Thanks, Ken. Patrick,
thank you very much.
Next up will be Matt Levitt. Then we have Nikki Werner on deck, and in the hole is John Bussman. So Matt Levitt with the University of Minnesota.
Chairman Thompson, members of the Ag Committee, thank you so much for being here. This is really a pleasure to speak to you. I'm Matt Levitt. I'm from the University of Minnesota Forever Green Initiative, and our goal at the Forever Green is to advance farming systems that provide living cover year-round, that protect Minnesota agricultural soils, but also developing and commercializing crops that protect our soil and water resources, but providing harvestable economic return for farmers. And demand for renewable fuels is growing nationwide, led by the airline industry, major oil companies, and state and federal incentives for low-carbon fuels. However, more feedstock supply is needed to meet this demand, especially from crops that do not displace corn and soybeans in the upper Midwest. And Minnesota farmers are poised to capture this incentive with your help and investment. Forever Green is developing 2 winter oilseed crops, winter camelina and pennycress, that can be grown in the winter between 2 summer annual crops. These so-called intermediate crops are emerging as biofuel feedstock options that can help meet the demand from industry responsibly while addressing water quality statewide and protecting soil health at the same time and not displacing corn and soybean acres that are so important to our rural communities. Intermediate crops provide cover crop benefits while improving soil health without causing land use change or displacing food crops. There are multiple opportunities to advance these intermediate crops through the upcoming Farm Bill. Additional investments in research and development could help improve these crops through genomics and breeding, and advance agronomic best practices and expand end-use markets for these crops. Support for growers through vehicles like crop insurance and conservation programs could help de-risk wide-scale adoption of intermediate crops. I'd be happy to follow up with any of you about opportunities for supporting intermediate crops within the Farm Bill, and again, thank you very much for being here.
Matt, thank you so much.
Next up, we have Nikki Warner, on deck John Bussman, and in the hole Ronald Bahurick. Nikki Warner with The Good Acre.
Hello, committee members. It's nice to see you in person. I've seen you all on TV, so this is pretty cool. My name is Nikki Warner. I work at The Good Acre. We're the largest food hub in Minnesota. Food hubs are critical infrastructure for sustainable and regional food systems. Last growing season, we moved almost $2 million in local food through our hub, including $1.4 million in produce alone, 87% of that coming from emerging farmers. Most of that food went to food banks, meal box programs run by healthcare organizations, colleges and K-12 schools, and out to households like yours and mine. The number one thing that the farmers that work with the Good Acre say they want from the Farm Bill is market access. Through the Farm Bill, taxpayer dollars fund billions of dollars in local food procurement that prioritizes cheap and convenient foods at the expense of the health of our communities and our environment. So what I'm asking is for you to consider how the Farm Bill can institute values-based procurement, creating market access opportunities for specialty crop farmers. Shifts like this, paired with investments in community food system infrastructure, has the power to transform local food systems so that more food from here is for here. Additionally, expanding USDA's local food purchase assistance program would be a really smart investment to help sustain market access programs for farmers that help feed our most vulnerable populations. Also, if you're heading to the Minnesota State Fair this summer, I welcome you to stop by and visit the Good Acre. We're right next door to the fairgrounds in a big red building on Larpenteur Avenue, so thank you for your time.
Very good, Nikki. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next will be John Bussman, on deck Ronald Bahurick, and Brent Christensen in the hole. So John Bussman with Bussman Farms.
I'm John Bussman, Southwest Minnesota, farm in both Michelle's district and right on the county line. And I'm here as a farmer, but I'm also here as someone who has spent 20 years overseas in development and relief. And what I'm advocating for here today, and it's something no one else has talked about, thank goodness, international food assistance. Now, that's not maybe what we would expect to talk about here at this show, but Food for Peace is one of the U.S. government's flagship food assistance programs. In the more than 60 years, and give McGovern Dole a lot of credit for making this work,
It has reached approximately 4 billion people in over 150 counties. One of the things it does, of course, is disasters and conflict and fills in there. But also important is developing resilience programs that people can help themselves to survive difficulties and disasters. Every dollar invested in such programs saves $3 in disaster relief. I ask you today, as representatives on this committee of Congress, to please join Representatives Dove and Lawler in signing the letter to strengthen international food security assistance in the Farm Bill. Please don't forget our people overseas. Thank you.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next is Ron Bahoric. He's a farmer from Hayfield, Minnesota. On deck is Brent Christensen, and in the hole, Colleen Moriarty. So Ron Bahoric.
I've been farming for well over 60 years. I've owned dairy animals since 1958, so I'm an old guy. My current dairy farm, I farm with my 2 sons. The average dairy, according to the Minnesota Business Management for 2022, out of the 243 dairy farms, they average 7 million pounds of milk per year. Your cap on your dairy program's at 5 million. You're grossly, grossly wrong. Each farm has 273 cows on it. They produce 25,000 pounds of milk. In 2022, we were paid $22.23 a hundred. Our last check we got $11.80. Can any of you guys cut your wage in half and make it? By December, maybe January, you're going to see dairy farmers going bankrupt and being foreclosed on. Simple as that. I call the dairy program right now a complete, utter disaster. Thank you.
Ron, thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Brent Christensen. Then we on deck, Colleen Moriarty, and in the hole, Dana Allen Tully. So Brent Christensen with Minnesota Telecom Alliance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee, welcome. I hadn't planned on saying anything today. I was going to sit back and listen. But then I got to looking at the members of the Minnesota delegation that are up here, and everything that all of you have done for rural broadband in our state. So I wanted to say thank you. Every one of you have either authored bills, signed letters of support, have really dug in to help us get rural broadband across the state of Minnesota. We have a lot of money coming in through other programs, and the RUS programs that fund rural broadband through the Reconnect program, ACP, and the others are still vitally important and vitally needed. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention to the committee and ask that you keep that in mind as Minnesota works to get true border-to-border broadband. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Next up will be Colleen Moriarty, on deck Dana Allen Tully, and in the hole Eric Hested. So Colleen Moriarty with Hunger Solutions Minnesota.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to see everyone this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm really here to say thank you as well for the long partnership that was established decades ago between the nutrition community and the agriculture community. That partnership has yielded a stronger nation because not only are the needs of rural America met during the Farm Bill, but also of people who are in need. When natural disasters strike, Disaster SNAP is there to help people to get back on their feet. And that's a very important part of disaster relief. I also want to just turn and thank everyone here for your support of the nutrition community
and all of us as we move forward. I'm looking forward to the Farm Bill. This will be my fourth one. I've been 20 years at Hunger Solutions, and I know the need is increasing. Many of the people who spoke before me about the nutrition needs locally are increasing, and food is harder to afford whether you are eligible for SNAP or not. But I really just wanted to stand up and say that I'm counting on you, that the nutrition community is here to be able to help you in any way that you need, and that we appreciate your support, and we appreciate the support of everyone here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up will be Dana Allen Tully. On deck, Eric Hattestead. And in the hole is James Connie. Dana Allen Tully is with the Minnesota Corn Growers Association.
Chairman Thompson, committee members, and other members who are great friends and champions of Minnesota farm families, thank you for coming to Minnesota today. My name is Dana Allen Tully. I farm with my husband Jim, my parents, and my brother near Eota, Minnesota, which is over in the D3 drought district this year. We're a diversified family farming operation that we have a dairy, corn, soybeans, alfalfa hay, and then we also have vegetable crops, so we grow some sweet corn and sweet peas as well. I'm here before you today as the first vice president for Minnesota Corn Growers Association. I want to thank the chairman and each of you for your determination in passing a farm bill that strengthens the farm safety net for all Minnesota's farmers. Our cost of production, or as you know, the current safety net is based on 2012 cost of production numbers, and a whole lot's changed on the farm since then. Our cost of productions are way different, interest rates are rising, and risks we take each year are greater than ever before. Like every family farm, I know we want to make our living off of the market, so we certainly only want the government involved to be a strong safety net for us. Mother Nature doesn't always see it that way, and foreign countries around the world use predatory trade practices to gain an unfair advantage over American farm families. A recent concerning example is Mexico's illegal effort to ban U.S. corn commodities, but that's only one of many. American farm families are the most efficient in the world. We cannot compete against foreign treasuries. With that, I'd like to thank you for your hard work. We're looking to strengthen the farm safety net, specifically to increase reference prices for ARC and PLC. Right now it's at $3.70, and I would hate to see where American agriculture is if corn prices were ever that low. So thank you for your time. Welcome to Minnesota. Dana, thank you so much, and
thank you.
Dana, congratulations last night on your recognition for distinguished service to Minnesota agriculture. Well done.
Next up, Eric Hattestead, Rural Power Coalition.
Good morning, Chair Thompson and committee. My name is Eric Hattestead. I farm with my family in Candy-Ojai County, and I'm also here representing the Rural Power Coalition. We're a coalition of over 200 rural advocacy organizations pushing for new investment in our rural electric system. For decades, rural America and rural electric cooperatives have waited for substantial new investments in our rural electric infrastructure to create rural jobs, lower costs for rural consumers, and improve our nation's energy security. The Empowering Rural America program, or New Era, offers a down payment on this long-awaited opportunity by making $9.7 billion available to rural electric cooperatives in funding for grants, loans, and loan modifications. This funding, however, is only a fraction of what the nation's 900 electric cooperatives and the 42 million Americans that rely on them need to build rural economies and defend energy security. Further, for more than 2 decades, the Rural Energy for America program has helped farmers and rural small businesses develop renewable energy and energy efficiency projects to benefit their operations. This overwhelmingly successful and popular program has helped more than 22,000 projects across rural America related to on-site clean energy generation and energy efficiency.
These overwhelmingly popular programs are broadly supported by rural electric cooperatives, farmers, ranchers, workers, rural advocacy organizations, and small businesses across the country. However, in the recently considered ag appropriations bill, cuts amounting to $500 million to the REAP program and $1 billion to the New Era program were proposed. Rural communities have waited long enough for the investments they deserve, dramatically reducing the number of rural Americans and communities that can benefit from these programs should disappoint everyone who cares about rural America. We urge Congress to retain and expand New Era and REAP funding so more rural communities can benefit from these programs. Thank you.
Eric, thanks so much.
Next we have James Connie, and then on deck is Harold Woolley. James Connie is a dairy farmer.
Good morning and welcome to my backyard. I live just a few miles away from here, just across the Minnesota River. And I thank you for coming to see what we do here. And I would like to say I'm not under any illusions that at this point in the Farm Bill there are going to be a whole lot of changes. I mean, you need to get it across the finish line here and there's not going to be a lot of changes done. But there are a couple of tweaks that you could do and that you could make possible. I would like to see greater equity for all farmers. And I'm a dairy farmer, and I also produce commodities, but I also realize that we have farmers out there who are not covered by crop insurance. We have farmers who are producing fruits and vegetables. And why is this important? Because we in this country used to say, we feed the world. Right now, we are not even feeding ourselves. 3 out of the last 5 years, we have run a deficit in our ag trade with the rest of the world. And why is this? Because we're importing a lot of fruit and vegetables and flowers and other things that are processed and have greater value. But we ship commodities out. Now, if we supported our fruit and vegetable farmers a little better, maybe with some crop insurance, they could do better. So that they would be there for us producing that food. Also, one other thing I would like to bring up that hasn't been brought up today is that we are at a crisis moment in climate change. I would like to say that we are at the Winston Churchill moment where all we have to offer you is blood, sweat, and tears. And I have yet to see anybody challenge us in any way in particular that will really make a difference for the future. Now, I'm almost done, and I would say that I am not going to see the effects of climate change, but my kids and my grandkids will. Please, make a difference. The Farm Bill can make a difference. James, thank you so much.
Up next, we have Harold Woolley with the National Corn Growers.
Chairman Thompson, members of the committee, last week I attended the U.S. Grains Council summer meeting. While there, I learned about their efforts to promote exports of feed grains and ethanol in using a partnership of funds, MAP and FMD funds, and contributions from our individual state corn grower organizations and ethanol plants. This is a public-private partnership that works for our America's farmers. So I encourage you in the trade title of the next Farm Bill to increase the funding for MAP and FMD. The trade promotion funds under the ATP program run out in 2024. Our trade organizations have been suffering along with the rest of us with increased costs from inflation. We need to see this program expanded. Thank you so much.
Harold, thank you.
Thank you. And we had a chance, our committee here, to hear from 43 people this morning. Let's give all the people a round of applause that were able to speak. I think that's great. For those that we were not able to get to, if you want to leave your comments over at the sign-up table, they'll make sure the committee's able to get to those. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Chairman Thompson, and we'll go to the wrap-up part of the program.
Well, Kent, so much. I'm going to recognize for some closing remarks all of our panel here, starting with Well, we'll work a little backwards here. Pete Stauber. Pete?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This was a great session. I've got almost a half a notebook filled with notes and suggestions and ideas. And what I really appreciated was the passion that you showed for what you believe in. And I can tell you that the members of the Ag Committee and the Minnesota delegation have heard you. And I know G.T. Thompson will be taking all of this back and try to get this legislation across the finish line. And Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Well, thank you. And now we're going to go to the gentlelady from Minnesota, Angie Craig, for closing comments.
Well, thank you so much. It's such an honor again to be back here. And right now in the 2nd District, just for those of you who don't know it that well, it's 40% covered in corn and soybeans as I sit here today. So that gives you a sense of the makeup of the 2nd. You know, the writing of the Farm Bill is so incredibly important. And as I came into Congress and Colin Peterson left Congress, he said to me as his parting gift, "Don't screw it up." So the 2018 Farm Bill was a pretty good Farm Bill. So Michelle, let's not screw it up. Look, being in D.C. does not qualify anybody to write a Farm Bill. What qualifies you to write a Farm Bill is to spend plenty of time listening to the family farmers and producers in your community. So that's just thank you for being here today. What I heard from you today was really, really clear on a number of topics. We've got to make sure that the next generation of family farmers and producers have a robust crop insurance program instead of forcing you to rely on the ad hoc programs like we've done previously. I'm working with Congressman Finstad down here, believe it or not, Iowa and Minnesota working together on a bipartisan bill that would give new and emerging farmers the security they need to build a successful operation. It's called the Crop Insurance for Future Farmers Act. You know, the other thing I heard today was around the conservation title, and that is a really, really important title to me. The CSP and EQIP funding, although we got some one-time funding in the IRA, we need to make sure that the Farm Bill adequately funds these programs. You know, the work on this committee, and I'm glad Mr. Chairman, could make this panel bipartisan here this morning. The work that we do in the Congress on Ag is some of the most bipartisan work in the U.S. Congress. And I pushed this administration, current administration, hard on biofuels when I think they're not doing enough. That's why in the last Congress I was the first member to ever pass a bill that would require year-round sales of E15. And I just think and that's why I'm a strong sponsor of the Next Generation Fuels Act. So making E15 permanent, making sure we have higher blends, it's an important priority to me. Foreign and animal health, disease prevention, John Zimmerman, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. Once again, thank you to everybody for being here today. We've got to make sure we keep these strong partnerships. Your point about nutrition and ag is well taken. And to the University of Minnesota Ag Extension, go Kernza. That's all I'll end it with, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlelady. Now, I recognize a gentleman that represents actually the birthplace of my two grandsons from the state of Iowa, Congressman Randy Finstad.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Hey, I want to just thank everyone for being here. This is incredible. I've learned a lot. You're no different than from where I'm at. I'm from Northwest Iowa. I've got the 2nd largest ag district in the country. And we're all dealing with the same issues, and I'm going to passionately fight for our issues in the Farm Bill. You know, coming up here this morning, I realized what the corn looks like. You know, just outside here, it's turning yellow. The leaves are turning. You know, this is why we have crop insurance, and I'm passionate about crop insurance and how we have to protect it, especially revenue insurance. Also, there's a lot of discussion about dairy margin coverage. I have a lot of dairies in my district. Again, so important that we get that done. And the export market, FMD and MAP, so critical as we move forward. Then finally, I just want to say, I've got the #1 district when it comes to biofuels. Biofuels is our future. We got to make sure we support it and get more things done in that area. And then also finally with African swine fever and other foreign animal diseases, We have to protect what we have. We cannot let this come in. So I'll be fighting those things in the Farm Bill also. Again, thank you so much. Great being here.
Thank the gentleman. Now recognize the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Max Miller, for any closing comments.
Does that work? All right, there we go. All right. I just want to thank the chairman and everyone who's here today and the entire Minnesota delegation. As you can see, it's bipartisan, and I think that shows that Congress is actually working together from what mostly that we see. But, you know, this gives us an opportunity to hear directly from you, and that's what's so important about it. Much of the appreciation that we have from this event here today, actually, I believe comes from Congressman Finstad over there, and thank you for all your help putting it together. If we can give him a round of applause, appreciate it. Thank you, Brad. Man, I thought being in your home state we'd get a bigger round of applause, Brad. All right, I'll get back to the script. That's true, it is Michelle's district. As we continue to work on the 23 Farm Bill, we have a unique opportunity to address the broad range of challenges facing American farmers and livestock producers. And that's why it's so critical for the agricultural industry to have a say. And that's why we're here today, and that's why the chairman is holding these hearings all across the country. Back home in Ohio, I put together an advisory council, an agriculture advisory council, to ensure the needs of our farmers and producers, that they're being heard and that they're being met within this Farm Bill. This listening session is a continuation of that effort. I understand that Minnesota farm and food processing industries generate over $112 billion and are critical to the United States and global farm economy. Many of the key issues I've heard from my farmers and through my work on the Agricultural Committee resound true here today. Some of these similarities, and we've heard them from almost everyone who's come up at the mic: strengthening the farm safety net, fostering crop insurance risk management tools, expanding trade markets and enforcing trade commitments, enhancing bioenergy and crop-based renewable energy, cutting-edge agricultural research, incentive-based conservation programs, and strengthening rural development jobs and other key priorities. Thank you again for the opportunity to let us all hear from you today. You are the voices that matter, and I'm confident that your input will be met in the Farm Bill and that the chairman will take good care of all of us. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Max, thank you so much. And now please recognize our host here in this congressional district, Congresswoman Fischbach.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for hanging in there with us for the last couple of hours, but thank you for all of the input. We heard from a great variety of people with organizations, individuals, and I think it was very meaningful what we were hearing. We did hear, I think Angie mentioned a few of the issues with, you talked about the next generation. We heard a lot about, I think that's going to be very important to make sure that we continue and make things sustainable for the next generation. You know, the CRP, so important, and we all know, you know, the last few years it's been a huge issue, and crop insurance, and I'm trying to read my own handwriting, I'm sorry, because I made so many notes, but you know, the animal disease preparedness, just lots of important issues that I appreciate that you came out, you took the time to talk to us about it, and I do know that there will be some, there's a few that I had some questions about, and I think what we're going to do is I'll probably have my office follow up, so if you hear from us, it's not that you're in trouble, it's just that we are trying to make sure that I get all my questions answered, because I appreciate the input. And with that, I am looking forward to working on the Farm Bill and making it good. Like I said earlier, I think that the Farm Bill is in good hands. I think GT is going to do a great job, and I think being out here talking to people and doing, what did you say, there's almost 55 of them you've done, this is the 55th across 51 across the country, and I think that shows you his commitment to making sure that this is a strong Farm Bill that's good for producers. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here.
Michelle, thank you so much. Now Congressman Finstad.
All right, thank you so much. What a great couple hours, what great input and feedback that we've received. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you do to feed and fuel the world. You know, we again are so blessed to live in such a great part of this state and this country, and all of you have done so much to make that great, and really the generational commitment that you and your families have made to Minnesota is remarkable, and I just want to say thank you. As we continue these talks on the Farm Bill, I mean, it's so important for us to remember that food security is national security. And so what we're talking about in the Farm Bill is much more than just, you know, a simple farm program or a crop insurance title. It's really about food security and national security. And if you look at the Farm Bill, over 82% of the Farm Bill is the nutrition title. And so I know a lot of you that came to the microphone talked about the importance of SNAP and the nutrition title. As I look around this room and I see so many friends and neighbors from southern Minnesota, I know you would give the shirt off your back to help the neighbor in need. And really, that's what this Farm Bill does. When we talk about 82% of the entire funding in this Farm Bill is put towards nutrition. It's put towards helping our neighbors that are in need. And so we need to make sure that we're stewards of your tax dollars, that we are positioning this Farm Bill to make sure that we are giving folks a hand up, not just merely a handout, and that we are getting the most accountable, result-driven program that we can. And so we're committed to that. I know a lot of you that came to the mic are working on that day in, day out, so thank you for what you do. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the process. So Chairman Thompson, thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to traveling all across the country to hear the different regions and the concerns that folks have and really the ideas. This is a bipartisan bill. It's a bipartisan committee. Angie, I just realized, boy, we're carrying a lot of bills together, and we heard that today. So we're committed to working together to getting this done. I had a great opportunity to meet with Senator Klobuchar last week to talk about what they're doing in the Senate and how we can complement each other from a bicameral point of view, because at the end of the day, it's going to take the House and the Senate coming together to get this done. And with GT's leadership and the commitment that we have from this group, but also from all of you, because you put yourself out there today, you're willing to be at the table helping us come up with solutions. So I just want to say thank you, and we look forward to getting this done in the next couple months. Thank you.
Bradley, thank you. And finally here, please to recognize, gentlemen, just a good friend, great leader, Congressman Tom Emmer.
Thank you, GT, and I want to thank you again for coming to Minnesota. This isn't your first time. You've done this repeatedly, and we're very grateful.
Tom, I do have a question for you. At what point, how many times do I have to come here where I'm obligated to start paying taxes? Because that's my hard cap. I'm not going to hit that.
Actually, I think someone gave you the answer last night. You came here, you're paying taxes. That's the way it works.
All right.
Everybody's going to pay taxes. So, GT, thank you for your leadership. I just have to say, Pete, Michelle, Brad could not have better teammates. Angie, I mean, we talk Republican, Democrat, but you're always there when we're talking about this stuff. And, you know, Randy and Max, I know you guys brought the boyish good looks. That was the whole reason that they invited you. That was a joke. I know, we've been here for a little while. Listen, Randy said it, because I wrote it as I was listening to all of you. We got to get this right, but we first must protect what we have. Your personal statements, the testimony about the dairy, the dire straits that our dairy folks are in, we've got to protect what we have. But second, we got to attract a whole new generation of farmers and ranchers. We got to take people from all over the place, not just farm kids that are growing up on the farm. I mean, they're not all as good looking as Brad Finstad, but these kids that are growing up on farms, we want them to come back to the farm, but we also want city kids looking at the opportunity to be involved in the ag industry. Remember, this is one of the primary drivers of this state's private economy. It's one of the reasons why in the last Congress I authored the Aspire Act, which Brad, since he is the farm guy, is carrying in this thing. It's for apprenticeships and different things in the ag industry to try and get kids back involved. We also have to protect and expand all incentives for people that want to get into farming and want to stay in farming. But you know what? We really have to protect tax incentives relating to things like stepped-up bases. We can't let the administration get rid of that. We've got to expand when it comes to the estate tax situation that we have. Lastly, we have to make it easier for young ranchers and farmers to continue the family farm tradition or to get in and start their own family farm tradition. That's going to require, you've heard the connectivity, the telecom, the broadband. It's all of that, but I think about the young people in the world right now. Where do you want to raise a family? I tell you what, I'd rather raise a family in rural Minnesota. I think the values actually make sense in rural Minnesota. We need to make sure that the development, rural development is there so people see the opportunity and want to make sure that they're living in these communities and driving our economy. And that's one of the reasons why we all voted for something called the Next Generation Energy Act as well. It's trying to get inflation and the costs under control. And one of the things, the primary things that drives our economy is abundant, efficient, and affordable energy from all sources. We can't just pick one or the other, and we can't force on the population that's producing food for this state, this country, and the world, an agenda that would restrict your ability to do what you do best, which is to feed us all. So again, I have supreme confidence in G.T. Thompson and the members that are up here on this table that the Farm Bill will be a Farm Bill that is written for you, by you, and that you can be very proud of. G.T.?
Tom, thank you so much. I want to say a great big thank to our moderator. Toughest job at a Farm Bill listening session. It's got to be the bad guy. And Kent, you did a great job. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Farm Fest organizers, the Farm Bureau. This is a great venue. This has been a packed house. Just thank you. Thank you for all of you who stood up and provided your testimony, and shared with members of the United States House of Representatives. Greatly appreciated. And thank all of you who are attending. And I would ask you to join me one more time in thanking our staff who work so hard to make us look a whole lot better than what we really are. So how about a big hand for all the staff, all the great work and the prep work. There was just a lot here. I carry, I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more I carry my memory with me. And I got a diary full of the notes from today and just outstanding input. What this is your voice, and bringing your voice back to the table in Washington. You do not want us to write a farm bill just listening to the voices inside the Beltway of Washington. Trust me, it wouldn't work out well. And that's why we're working hard to bring your voice to the table. I want to touch on just a few things. Maybe I can give you a little update. Loud and clear on labor. We need labor in both production and we need labor in processing. I'm really proud of this committee. Under the rules of the House in the 118th Congress, we were able to have 6 subcommittees, and we have that, but we were able to have a task force. And so about 3 to 4 weeks ago, I kicked off a task force that was formed on agriculture workforce. And it charged them, there's 16 of us, including myself and Ranking Member Scott. There's 8 Republicans, 8 Democrats. We have 2 co-chairs, Rick Crawford from Arkansas and Don Davis from North Carolina. And we're working, and I put a time limit on it. Didn't have to, but I find that deadlines are helpful. You can deliver, you usually get better results when you put a little pressure on it and you put a deadline. So we did a 6-month deadline, and they're off and running. They had their first 3 meetings. They have a couple objectives. The first two of 3 objectives are identify what are the variables that are impacting the lack of certainty when it comes to agriculture workforce, both production and processing. You can't have one without the other. And then what are the implications on food insecurity? Because whatever we would put forward would be under that banner, under that theme, under that umbrella. And then finally, at the end of those 6 months, what are the findings, the recommendation on how we restore or build certainty into agriculture workforce, because it is about food security. Now, we don't have jurisdiction of where that legislation would be, but I believe with working with this committee and get as many of the 53 members of the Agriculture Committee on board, and quite frankly you on board, because it meets your needs, we could have some probability of success of tackling what has been a very difficult issue going forward, all limited to that. So that's at Proposition 12, and that's California trying to dictate how farming practices. And our founders did not want 13 states when they started out having trade wars. What that would do to the economy will wreck it. The complexity that would create, they certainly wouldn't want 50 states in trade wars. And so we are following the advice, the guidance, I guess the opinions that were published by the Supreme Court on that case, which said, and it was 3 of the three justices that made the difference that allowed Prop 12 to stand. They let us stand, if you read their opinion, they let us stand because they're tired of doing Congress's work. And they said this needs to be fixed, and the Farm Bill is the place to address this. And the justices are tired of doing, the judicial branch is tired of doing the work of the legislative branch. So we will be addressing the Prop 12 provisions. Dairy, thank you all those who spoke on dairy. I like to tell people I've got milk with sawdust flowing through my veins. Dairy is pretty important to me, obviously, a state like Pennsylvania. Thank you for all of you that have helped support Whole Milk for Healthy Kids. I got a great shout out during this. I would encourage you to weigh in with your senators. This is not in the purview of the Agriculture Committee. It's Education Workforce, but we did pass the Whole Milk for Healthy bill, 26-13, strongly bipartisan out of the Education Committee, and I feel pretty confident. So we'll have that on the House floor sometime this fall. Where I need your help is to weigh in with the senators. We have great support, bipartisan, tripartisan support. We have an independent senator supporting it as well in the Senate, but we need 60 votes in the Senate. And we're working on modernizing the dairy margin coverage. Nutrition's really important. You know, we're really proud, actually, the fact that it's a rural value that neighbors help neighbors in need. And that's what the nutrition title does. Now, I will say, for those who want more money, the Farm Bill is $1.5 trillion over 10 years. $1.2 trillion is nutrition. It is called supplemental. It's not fulfilling all of a family's nutritional needs. And so there are 4 principles. I've always been a robust supporter of the nutrition title. We are not going to split that title out from the rest of the Farm Bill, as far as I'm concerned. Those 4 principles, though, are pretty straightforward when it comes to nutrition, and that's not just SNAP. It's the Emergency Food Assistance Program, TFAP, which is our food banks and food pantries. And a term I learned today I haven't heard anywhere else, food shelves. That's a first for me. And it's an investment. That much money is investment in SNAP employment and career and technical education and SNAP education. Those 4 principles are innovation and flexibility. It is not just food security, it's financial security. That's important. It is program integrity. There's not a lot of fraud within the nutrition title, but there is some that does occur. We see it reported in the news from time to time. It's all anecdotal, but none of it's acceptable. And so we have a responsibility to make sure we do everything we can to end the opportunity for fraud. And then, and finally, it's healthy eating. I used to call it nutrition, but you know, in the federal government, we have no definition of what's nutritional. It's just too hard to wrap your arms around on what is nutritional. But we know that health is important to each individual, and there's nothing more fundamental to health than good, healthy foods. And so those are those 4 principles. I got to do a shout out. Thank you to whoever stood up and talked about food for peace. We're an Army dad. I'm an Army dad, Army family. What little bit of travel I've done around the world, I find it a truism that people with full bellies are less likely to engage in war and terrorism, and that food is a better investment than bullets. Bullets and blood. And so that's just a personal thing. I think John was the one that brought that up. And John, thank you for that. The Food for Peace, for all the more that we invest, it prevents us deploying our troops in a lot of different parts of the world. So, and then finally, climate. And I always, I'll be quite honest with you, I absolutely believe that ag is and always has been climate friendly. Agriculture is. There is no better climate heroes in the world than the American farmer, rancher, forester, and our processors. And the data shows that. The data says that American agriculture, so that's crops, livestock, and trees, that sequesters annually 6.1 gigatons of carbon annually. Now, I don't know how big a gigaton is, but it sounds huge, right? Somebody did on the committee did point out one time and explain it to me, and I still didn't get it. But I like the fact they did tell me. So do you know what the definition of a gigaton, or the abbreviation for gigaton is? GT. So I thought that was a big deal. I kind of like that, right? But the research goes on to show that the American farmer, and using that term broadly, including processing, we sequester 10.1% more carbon than what we emit. The American farmer is not a carbon criminal. The American farmer is a carbon hero. Now, it's also it's science, technology, and innovation. And so it's not static, it's dynamic. And there are additional advancements in research we can continue to do. But I get really upset when folks will portray, who fail to recognize what the American farmer does, not just for jobs, not just for nutrition, not just for food security, but for the environment and for the climate. And so, bottom line is we all have to tell that story a little better and more effectively, because it's a great, great story to tell. So, as I said, I think I said before, there's one goal when it comes to the Farm Bill, and that is that we do this in thousands of objectives, but that one goal is that we pass this bill in a bipartisan, bicameral way, on time, and highly effective. And your input today is helping us achieve that highly effective. The productivity of American agriculture has increased, well, it was 287% since the 1940s, but with this inflation, it's down to about 279%. But it's still remarkable that nobody does it better anywhere in the world. Our goal with the 2023 Farm Bill is we provide you all the tools that we take that increase in productivity since the 1940s to 400%. And we can do that. You know, if American farm families fail, every American family fails, and we can't let that happen. I encourage you to continue to get input, as you've heard, into this 2023 Farm Bill, but I want to remind you the clock is ticking, and we're starting to write. And so I encourage you to give input, but if you haven't done it yet, I encourage you to give input very quickly. That said, really appreciate everybody in here. This is I believe it's the 51st Farm Bill listening session around the country. We have a few more scheduled here for the month ahead, and I appreciate everybody coming, and this listening session is officially adjourned.
Thank you. Let's have a big round of applause here for Chairman Thompson and the rest of our members of Congress here that participated. Again, we ask if you want to visit with any of these members to do it outside. We'll be reorganizing here, and the Linder Farm Network Noon Show will start shortly after noon.